In October 1555, an emperor who'd ruled over Europe for half a century was voluntarily abdicating from his throne. He was Charles V, who once waged wars all across Europe to establish the hegemony of the Habsburg family. By 1555, however, he was an old man hobbling on a walking stick. Charles V made his way to the throne, supported by the 22-year-old Prince William of Orange, his most trusted follower. He was succeeded by Philip II, who was 28 at the time. As King of Spain, Philip II inherited the Low Countries in Belgium, which belonged to the Habsburgs. William of Orange swore allegiance to Philip II on behalf of the Dutch aristocrats. However, this peace was not to last. In just 10 years, King Philip and Prince William would be fighting each other on the battlefield. Prince William was one of Charles' most faithful servants. What had led him to turn against his successor in just 10 short years?
And Charles V was raised in this Burgundian tradition. And so Charles V was considered to be an autochthonous sovereign lord of the Netherlands. He was considered by the Netherlandish people as one of them, as he was born in Ghent and as he was raised in the Netherlands. And this, of course, was entirely different with his son Philip II, who was born in Spain and who was raised in Spain.
Philip II saw himself as the protector of the Catholic faith. He was deeply pious and ruthless to religious dissidents. He saw it as a task that God had bestowed upon him to prevent religious reform and unite Europe under Catholicism. However, in the Netherlands, religious reform under Calvinism was spreading rapidly. Protestants suffering under the religious persecution decided to strike back by destroying Catholic churches. They fell holy statues and tore religious paintings and tapestry. As retaliation for the destruction of the holy statues, the Duke of Alba installed a special court, which soon became known as the Court of Blood. It was where over 10,000 Dutchmen were put on trial, and over 1,000 were sentenced to death in just 2 years. The execution of the Counts of Egmont and Hume, their most prominent statesmen, came as a huge shock to the Dutch people. They were Catholics who had been faithful to King Philip all their lives. The sole reason for their execution had been their failure to persecute the Protestants. Religious tolerance was a sin to King Philip. The terror of the Spanish Inquisition began to grip the Netherlands. The Spanish Inquisition spread fear all over Europe. It was synonymous with cruel torture and biased rulings. Once you were put on trial, you had no hope.
The most extreme punishment was to be burnt, tied to a stake and burnt at the stake. That was the death by burning. That was the most extreme punishment. Other types of ways of shaming people, in the case of, say, women who were witches, they would put them on donkeys, naked, and walk them around the town where they were well known. Everybody going, "Whoa," you see, that sort of thing. Then there was also imprisonment. You could be imprisoned until the inquisitors were satisfied that you had learnt what you should learn and you would behave properly. And then those who have not confessed, who've refused, or those who've done it before, then they're taken away and executed. And it's even more than that. Some people die in prison, of course. So they take their bones and they burn them in public, you see, destroyed completely.
This led to widespread protests and destruction of statues. The religious movement was soon turning into an armed uprising. At last, the protests turned into a war for independence led by Prince William of Orange. From 1573 to 1574, the people of Leiden stood strong against the merciless onslaught of Spanish troops. The city came close to starvation as the Spanish surrounded its walls. However, the people of Leiden resisted to the end. As a final resort, they broke open the dam using seawater to flood the Spanish troops away.
And then the land came underwater, and they did it because the people who liberated us had boats, so the Geuzen had boats. And then there was a very, very strong wind in the night before the 3rd of October, and that's where they came with the boats to Leiden. And the Spaniards, they had to flee the city because there was too much water for them. At that time, we wanted to be free, and if we want something here in Leiden, then we are going to get it. So then we will be free in the end.
On January 29, 1579, the 7 states of northern Low Countries make a pact to stand together to the end for their religious freedom and rights. This was the Union of Utrecht, which laid the foundations for the nation we now call the Netherlands. This union was founded on the principle of religious tolerance. The treaty stated, each person shall remain free in his religion, and no one shall be investigated or persecuted because of his religion. However, the persecution continued in the Spanish territories. The sack of Antwerp in 1576 drove more Jews and Protestants into northern Netherlands.
The troops that were based in Antwerp, they, of course, like all troops, needed payment. But the payment, which had to come from Spain with ships, the ships were taken by Elizabeth of England. And so there was no money available in Antwerp to pay the troops. And as a consequence, once troops don't get paid, they want to get the pay anyway, and they started looting. And that's called the Spanish Fury in Netherlandish historiography.
1594, they started building flute ships. And flute ships had the advantage of being quick and they had a very nice proportion to the ship's hull, which made that they could transport a lot of goods with a very small ship. So that made it much cheaper. And in the European waters, these ships did very, very well.
The flutes were not only faster, they were also cheaper to build. Advanced technologies enabled the Dutch to make ships at a far lower cost than their competitors. If it took 1,300 pounds to build a ship in England, it could be done for 800 pounds in the Netherlands.
It was invented in Holland. It doesn't look so very revolutionary, but the secret of this ship was that it was a middle-sized ship which could be sailed with only a few people. You needed only a crew of some 20 people to sail it, which meant that it didn't cost much if you had to pay the crew. You didn't need many people.
These advantages allowed the Dutch to ship goods for a third of the cost of other countries. This enabled them to dominate the global shipping trade. In the 17th century, the total number of trading vessels in the world was 20,000, and the Netherlands owned 15,000 of them. 75% of the world's trade was being conducted by the Dutch. The Dutch also made huge profits from the luxury goods trade. Luxury items such as sugar, spices, and silk from New Amsterdam, Brazil, South Africa, India, Southeast Asia, Taiwan, and Japan were collected at Amsterdam and then shipped all over the world again.